everybody. Welcome to this week's podcast on optimizing your brain. So I love the brain stuff. And I know we've done a whole bunch of talks on this before, but there's definitely a lot to learn.
There is.
About what is going on in this brain. So we're excited to be offering this to everyone today. So how was our week this week? How was our breathe, eat, move, sleep week?
Breathe. What do you think? How were you?
Well, I like to get up, do my, try to get up and do my meditation. But, I noticed we've been a little busier than normal lately. So I'm probably maybe 60% out of the week of getting up and being still. But it's forcing me to find it other places. So I'm okay with it. Different ways of finding this slowness, relaxation, physically, mentally, emotionally, right?
Well, and we talk a lot about starting with stillness and then concentration. I think obviously shifting my job where this is like a focus, and I talk with every patient about breathe, eat, move, sleep. It's made me more conscious about my own breathing, and so it's made it easier for me because I've purposefully built it in and pausing more. So it's been good.
Yeah. And I know our eating, we're definitely, we've always been big on the veggie stuff anyway, right? We try to get whatever, the fruit in the morning, it seems like, and then salads, or I think for every dinner we've got some kind of cooked veggies, which is a
Thanks
is a
to
big
Green
piece
Bean
of it.
Delivery, that has been our saving grace. I think we've been so busy to get to the grocery. So I know when we talked about this, it would be really cool if we could get a hold of them, if people don't know about it, to talk about it. It's a delivery service that comes to us, but
it's
they
on my
bring
to-do
fresh
list.
veggies and add it to your to-do list.
No, it's
it
on
is
there.
on there? Okay.
Yeah.
I do think that would be nice they're local.
Yep. And then we also, this last week, we batched our kombucha, right? So that's 3 gallons. And that whole process, absolutely. We'll do a whole podcast probably on that one. But that is so much fun. And it's good for, why would we even drink it, Amy? What's it do?
Well, we can spend a whole podcast on that.
Well,
honestly.
no, but just at a high
level.
level.
It is so good. It has like healthy bacteria, so it helps with your gut health and your pH and your digestion. So many good things.
Good
bacteria.
The move stuff, I think we've been pretty halfway decent at that. Getting in, whether it be our Chloe Ting, yoga, stretching. We are training for the Hilly 100.
You've had me out biking a lot more.
And Jacob behind the cameras there is going to do it with us, and we'll see if we can get some more takers on that. But that's a ton of fun. I think it's October 8th, 9th, 10th,
The
something
beginning
like that.
of October.
So, and then the sleep stuff, we've kind of redone the bed. We've got a foam mattress there that helps our shoulders. Both our shoulders were hurting, but I think we're better now.
That's helped
Better,
a lot.
seems.
And my pillow, and it's been a little struggle since my surgery a year and a half ago, but that is definitely something I'm focusing on to get better sleep.
So if we're optimizing brain health, let's share maybe some statistics that I know we looked up on the prevalence of the incidence of, maybe not so good brain health.
And this topic really came about because when I stop and think about, as a physician, what I'm seeing every day, we think of brain health. It can be anything from true medical conditions, anxiety, depression, Alzheimer's, dementia, ADHD, but the symptoms are so prevalent as well. Our brain is so complex. Our brain, what do they say? We have like 100 billion brain cells
That's
in
a
there.
few. That's a
and
good
it
handful.
takes, my gosh, over 100 chemicals just have to be like dumped and in balance for us to have a normal
When I think that
conversation.
100 billion cells, because we were looking this up, this is really talking about the neurotransmitters, right? So there's the actual formation of the brain, and then you have all the chemicals within it, right? So it's kind of interesting how it breaks down.
Well, to say the least, it is complex.
It's very complex.
And with these podcasts, we are doing these to help, obviously our members, but we really do have a drive, I think, to just help raise community awareness as we've been talking about. And mental health issues they're very prominent in our community. Of all ages. I mean, we see it in kids, we see it in adults, we see it in geriatrics. I think we've seen through the pandemic that unfortunately numbers escalated a lot. 1 in 5 adults suffer from a diagnosable disorder such as major depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, obsessive compulsive.
And you see this, I mean, what we saw, and this was all National Institute of Health statistics, but the 4 leading causes they had were major depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD.
And then when we look at the youth, 1 in 5 young people are affected by mental health problems. 2/3 of all young people with mental health problems are not receiving the help they need. I think part of that is we still stigmatize mental health issues, and we need to get across that this is not a character flaw. Again, these 100 billion cells, these 100 chemicals, all of this is so complex. And we're going to talk today, a lot of our podcast is about helping people be proactive on things we can do as preventatively, or if you are feeling symptoms and things that we're talking about, what you can do to maybe help rebalance chemicals. So we really...
Right. And I like that you said character flaw, because if you've lived as long as we have into your 50s, right? You've had at some point the brain not working as good as it probably could, right? And so, to let all the listeners know that if you've lived life long enough, there's going to be, you're going to get out of balance at some point. It's just going to happen. And the point is how, 1, become conscious of it, and then 2, how do you get back to balance? Or and I know these are things that you do on a daily basis, right? I don't think you go through a day of either talking to people or working with people that there's not some kind of opportunity to get a patient back into balance. It's all of us, really.
Well, and we said 1 in 5 adults suffer from something. And I think they even said like 1 in 5 office visits are for some behavioral health condition. But if you think about brain health, not just a diagnosable condition, but people come in, and this is daily. This is almost every patient or every other patient. They're saying, my memory's not what it used to be.
Right.
I'm having trouble focusing. Brain fog. I'm anxious. I'm waking up. My mind, I can't shut my mind off. Or I just feel blah. I don't have any motivation. I mean, there are symptoms, brain symptoms that I imagine all of us deal with throughout the week sometimes. And there are so many things, especially lifestyle. And that's what we really want to focus on, is there are so many things you can do that can help your brain and so many things that can hurt your brain.
Right.
And so using our 4 pillars, we know that there are definitely some great things that we can do. But I guess first, though, we wanted to really talk more about the anatomy of the brain.
So, and if you think about evolution, and this was Paul MacLean and the triune brain, so this is, and he was an MD, neuroscience, and kind of, I think everybody that is in that field recognizes that name. But he broke it down into 3 parts of the brain. You had the lizard brain, and so this is our brain stem, the cerebellum. Then you had the mammal brain. This is when the limbic system came and had evolved into on top of the brainstem. And then after that, the neocortex. And so if you look at it, the lizard brain is the one that helps us with the fight, the flight, or the freeze, right? So I know sometimes here, I've told you recently, I was like, oh my God, I'm not breathing. So that's the freeze response. I mean, if I'm stressing, then, maybe you stop breathing. And you might all notice this at some point, but that's what the lizard brain is doing. And this is our autopilot. This goes back millions of years. in evolution, right? This is at the essence of all of us. And if you ever get to the point like, why did I do that? It was probably the lizard brain that caused a lot of that. So the mammal brain then is the limbic system, and this is our emotions, our memories, habits, and this is also where we started to develop like decision making and that kind of stuff.
More complex.
And then we went on into the human brain as we have now, and that's the neocortex. That's when we think of the brain, that's the neocortex piece, right? All the folds and all that stuff. And this is the language, abstract thought, imagination, reason, rationalization, but it's also where we see our consciousness. And I think this is so important to recognize. If we're asking people to change habits, it probably happens at the conscious level. In the absence of that, you're just going to go right back into that autopilot lizard brain, and it loves sugar. It loves all this stuff to keep us alive, right? Very powerful. And so as we take people along this journey of optimal living, it will be the ones that are going to be the most successful are the ones that will find a way to become more conscious within our day. And I think it's difficult for any of us to hold that state for very long. It's a lot of work. I think you got to be conscious of it. and most of us, a lot of times through our day, are just on autopilot. Where did the day go, right?
We're reacting and responding to everything that's being thrown at us.
Yep. So. And if the more stressed we are, the more we generally will stay in that state unless we are heavily practiced into staying conscious and being conscious as a human. So that's kind of the evolution of the brain, lizard brain, right, the mammal brain, and then the human brain. And we're trying to, with OPT2LIV Medical, get people to stay in the human brain. Consciously exist in this world as much as possible.
Well, if you look back at that, like to talk even more about what happens during stress, that limbic brain, there's something called the amygdala, and that's your emotional control center. And so under stress, like our body, there's these signals, and it can be thoughts, it can be some stress that's going on around us, but it can also be an emotion or a thought or a smell or whatever it is. It's a signal that gets dumped right from our amygdala, that emotional control center, and then it sends out these signals to like our adrenal glands, for instance. Those adrenal glands then dump out cortisol. Cortisol is that stress, hormone that
immediately
throws
moved
us
into the primitive brain, right?
and it throws you into that fight or flight. Yep. And then from there, it's so interesting. Cortisol has so many effects. Cortisol can wreak havoc on our blood sugar, on our insulin, makes us store belly fat. It messes up our hormones. It can actually lower testosterone in men. It can make us accumulate bad estrogens in women. So it's that chronic stress too. Like there's the acute stress, and then there are these chronic stress responses. So our body kind of is constantly in this
What was that statistic,
state.
Amy? When you get into a full sympathetic response and all the chemicals get dumped, the IQ drops in half.
Half, yeah.
And depending on how extreme it is, if it's a full on, it's up to 4 hours. You're there for 4 hours. And then slowly as the chemicals get, I guess, integrated back into the body and removed out of the bloodstream, that maybe we get our IQ back. But think in the workplace, how many people are under stress and how productive are we if we're just at work with half of our brain?
It is true though.
We try to get our whole brain to work every day.
We do.
We try.
We try. I know. Think about it. And it's like, I was talking to patients earlier today, and like that constant, you wake up, you have your kids, or you're immediately off and running. You go to work and there's constant stress. You don't have any margins. You eat at your desk working. You go home, you run to kid activities, you come home, you finish maybe looking at emails. It's crazy what we're
Right.
expecting our brain to do.
So
In
now
our
that
body.
we've given them a good sense on the complexities of the brain, right? How are we gonna help them? And I know we want to talk a little bit about our pillars, the breathe, eat, move, sleep pillars. So I know on the breathe pillar, we talk a lot about daily relaxation, and so of course we offer this. To your point about from a community standpoint, we want to educate the world, right? Wouldn't it be great? But obviously, we have our patients that we're near and dear to. So, we tell them as well to find relaxation physically, mentally, emotionally. Now, we do coaching with our patients, right? So we actually integrate this into their life and work with them one-on-one to the point to where they become that master on how to do that. But we need to find a way to do that at least 2 minutes every day, right? That's the key. When we do it every day, it becomes a part of our nature, and that's what we need. Out of the gate, it's going to be like, okay, that didn't work. That's day one. Day two, okay, I don't know, maybe a little bit. But, after a couple weeks, it's like, wow, you actually relaxed today. Okay, good. Well, then just keep doing it, right?
You send those signals, like those physical signals
Yeah.
and those chemical signals,
Yeah.
to balance out all that cortisol and that stress. And
So, if you think about physical relaxation, that's the first thing the body's kind of looking at. Are you tense, Eric? If you are, it's not going to move from the sympathetic into parasympathetic, right? That's the first stage. So relax physically. Then we get into the mental piece, and that's where our brains are circular thinkers, right? So we spin up things. They say, I think it was 3,300 thoughts an hour. That's a lot. And if you don't know how to manage your thoughts, at the end of the day, you've just got an accumulation of thoughts. It's too much for anybody, right? So we got to exit our thoughts, our circular thinkings. Okay, I don't have to worry about you. But
exactly.
if we hang on to some of these, the next thing you know, we're back into your example, right? Then the emotions hit, and then next thing you know, we're in sympathetic response. So that's where it's so important to relax physically, mentally, and emotionally. How about the
That's
eat?
good.
You are our eat expert at the house for sure.
Food is medicine. Food feeds your brain. I think one of the biggest things, and I notice it, if I skip a meal or if I eat something higher carb, my sugar crashes. Sometimes if I don't realize it, like I think, why do I feel like anxious right now? Or why do I feel nervous? And it's just these blood sugar fluctuations. And that's probably one of the biggest things that you can do for your brain is balance your blood sugar for your memory, for your focus, and even, high blood sugar puts you at risk. Even people that have just a borderline high blood sugar long term have higher risk of dementia. So we do really need to pay attention in more complex carbs over simple carbs, which, more whole foods, things that are more in their whole form. The more processed something is, and obviously regular sugar is something
You
that's
mean the
going
Twinkie out of the package? Is that processed?
the shelf life of how many years?
7 years,
Yeah.
maybe.
So paying attention to our macros that we talk about, protein, carbs, and fat, and then paying attention to our micros, like our nutrients, because again, if you think about like even mood chemicals, serotonin, dopamine, it is so complex, and you have to have amino acids such as tryptophan. We always think about
Oh, there's Thanksgiving coming up.
turkey has tryptophan. It's an amino acid we actually cannot make on our own. We have to take it in through food. There are other things that help tryptophan. I think it's like nuts and seeds and some of the greens, eggs, spinach, dark leafy greens, walnuts, turkey, salmon, poultry. So all of those they give us tryptophan, and then we use tryptophan to make serotonin. We also need things like B vitamins, magnesium, zinc, all of these D that help us. They're called cofactors, or sometimes they help you make enzymes that help you make serotonin and dopamine. And so that's why food is so important. And I love that science behind it all. And that's our food plan is really based on whole foods, a lot of vegetables and fruits and nuts and seeds and good fats and good carbs and good protein.
I love how you've done such a great job as we were developing, kind of our curriculum, our pillars, breathe, eat, move, sleep curriculum for our patients, and that eat pillar that you get into such detail with the macro and the micronutrients. And of course, we have some really good resources that we use as well. But to get our patients to the point to where they truly are a mini scientist for how food is medicine. And you can see it when you actually start to study it at that level. So you've done such a great job on that. I know that I think most of us, if any of us, and I know we have run, 20 mini marathons, 3 marathons. We, back in the day, were pushing these kids around Muncie all over the place, right? I mean, training for that stuff. And you do there's some chemicals that get dumped in the body when you are exercising at that level. I'm surprised that I don't run anymore, but my body won't allow me.
Physically, it's a little rough on your body. There's other ways you can get it besides running. The movement and
I
exercise.
feel like I'm halfway healthy with my yoga and getting some cardio in and some light weights.
And we know the whole 14 minutes of target heart rate is really the key, and exercise increases something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It's a big word. But that is something that helps with your brain cell growth. And exercise also thickens your hippocampus, which is your memory center in your brain. So really important, very important. And it balances out mood. And like you mentioned, those endorphins and so lots of positive.
And I think there's, just so that everybody knows, we do push daily exercise. That is going to be better than saying, hey, I'm going to hit the gym once a week for a long period of time. It is better to do at least that 14 minutes a day, every day. And it just helps with the metabolism. It helps with so many different things and complexities there. And, how about sleep? Who likes sleep more, me or you?
I like it. It's been more of a challenge for me lately, which is so frustrating. I've always been the best sleeper. And again, I think that it shows how complex sleep is, because it could be, I had that shoulder surgery and then wasn't sleeping good with that, and then the pandemic hit, and that's stress, and then I went through menopause, so that's hormones. So it's been
sounds like a roller coaster ride
triple
for you.
whammy. And so sleep, it's so important, because sleep deprivation can mimic a state that is like depression or anxiety. They've shown where people, once you get your sleep restored, actually all those symptoms go away. So it can make you feel depressed. It can make you feel anxious. Sleep, they talk about kind of being a time for house cleaning in our brain.
I love this.
Isn't
this
this
is so
interesting?
fascinating.
It's something called the glymphatic system. I thought that was fascinating, but it's basically kind of a waste clearance time. So when we sleep, we clear out waste from our central nervous system. And so those toxic byproducts that we might, have built up in our brain through the day, it helps us remove all that. And so sleep is so important. So when we're sleeping, our brain is working to do a cleanup job.
So, and I think, and you shared this with me, so every time we make energy in the body, there's a waste, right? So right now, us even having the conversation, right? Energy, there's waste, and it's sitting there, and there was something about, I forget the cells, but they expand it. So the synovial fluid, when we sleep, exchanges, so all this waste up here gets flushed out, and then new fluid comes up, and then those cells expand to lock that up there. And if we don't get a trigger that says, hey, it's time to remove the waste, I guess we go through another day with more waste up here.
Well, think about it. Even oxidative stress that occurs in our body in general, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like rust on the pipes, right, of a car or something. We have to clean it out every once in a while, and that's what antioxidants do, and that's why we talk even food and all these different things are so important, and supplements and the proper diet and all that for sleep.
So it's probably not healthy to wear a badge that says, oh, yeah, I don't need a lot of hours of sleep. it's probably in the long run not good for the body.
Well, sleep contributes to memory function by converting our short-term memories into long-term memories, as well as erasing or just forgetting unneeded information that otherwise kind of clutters the nervous system. It's so complex. And then when you get enough sleep, that amygdala that we were talking about, right, that emotional control center can respond in a more adaptive way. If you're sleep deprived, you might be more likely to overreact, right? Or just not think. I mean, we always are like, just sleep on it. And isn't it true how many times, like, things can be such a big deal and you just sleep on it, and then the next day you are kind of clearer minded and you can just make a more conscious decision about something or make more conscious plans. So it's pretty amazing.
Well, I think we definitely are excited to share this. I mean, the brain is such a big part of all of our lives. And to respect how it operates, I think, is important. And then how you can participate in an optimal brain. So hopefully this was helpful to everyone. Anything else that...
I think it's just, again, taking time, think about those 4 pillars so that you can be still, be conscious, make some good decisions about your eating and your movement, and work towards good sleep.
I love it. Well, hey, we are grateful for the opportunity to share these podcasts with you guys. Always, if you can, like us, subscribe to us. We are here. If you got any other topics you want, throw a note at us. We're grateful to provide them. We're wishing you guys a wonderful day.